Show. It's Words versus Words with Friends podcast featuring Jolene Santiago and Shamika Montgomery. This is a fun, innovative, interactive podcast filled with stimulating discussions and healthy debates using words and phrases that we use every day. Now, let's get to the podcast.
Hi, welcome to Words versus Words with Friends. This is a fun, interactive podcast where we challenge your mind and perspective using everyday words and phrases. I'm your host, Jolene Santiago, and I have my co-host here, Shamika Montgomery.
Hey y'all, thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Words versus Words with Friends. Words versus Words with Friends is a podcast created to bring back the art of conversation. We just want to encourage dialogue and to also help you think outside the box. So tonight we're going to do something a little bit different. So we usually do a word versus another word and then kind of give our opinion. But tonight we're going to talk about manipulation. Is it good or is it bad? So the definition of manipulation is to change by artful or unfair means so as to serve one's purpose. So Jolene, manipulation, I have to admit, as soon as I hear the word, I automatically think of something negative. You know, I think of maybe being a narcissist, maybe trying to be sneaky, or maybe trying to pull schemes on someone. That's something that I do think about. But for tonight, I'm going to kind of go against the grain just a little bit because I think that manipulation, it can be a positive thing. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's control. I think it has to deal with control. You trick a person, trickery, or the other person doesn't know really what's going on or your intent. What is your intention? So for me, I look at manipulation as being negative. I really just don't see any positive that can come from it.
So I disagree with that because I really do think it comes to the perspective. So really we can look at any word and see it as negative, but then on the flip side, we can also look at it and see it as positive. So for positive manipulation, if we can get that slide, I just want to go ahead and look at something a little bit differently when it comes to manipulation. So a positive form of manipulation is contrivance. So it is the use of skill to bring something about or create something. And so in psychology today, it talks about that a positive manipulation could be known as contrivance. I do also want to bring up maneuver because when I think of manipulation, I do think of you're maneuvering something. So you're trying to conform something to create something. So maneuver is carefully guide or manipulate in order to achieve an end. And so with this one, this is why I want to bring out this side of it, because we do look at manipulation as a bad thing. But I think we use manipulation to some extent almost every day. I have examples of if you're a teacher, you use contrivance or positive manipulation to help teach your kids. You come up with tactics and maneuvers to help them understand the lesson that you're trying to give. What are your thoughts about that?
I'm a teacher, so I'm trying to see it from your point of view.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's kind of hard. Like I need a picture to be painted in my head. And right now I'm just not seeing it, Shamika. I'm not.
Okay.
Hey guys, thank you for joining in this evening. Thank you for those who are on Facebook, those who are on Spreaker. We want to hear your opinion. We want to hear your view. Do you think manipulation is good or bad? And we want you to back it up with some evidence. What examples do you have? Like, we don't want you to just say, hey, we think it's good or bad, but we want you to just bring your point of view, bring examples. Right now, Shamika, I just can't see it. Can you paint a picture for me?
I can. So I have other examples. Even if you're a parent and you're a child, so you do use a form of manipulation as well. But would you look at that as something negative or positive? I think it can be positive. That's why I just think that we shouldn't automatically just go to a word and automatically assume it's something negative because of things that people have said about manipulation. Because if you're trying to manipulate things, I'm going to use another example. So physical therapy. With my mom, she said I could talk about this just a little bit. So with my mom, she had a surgery, and so she goes to physical therapy. She goes to rehab 3 times a week. What do they do to her knee? They manipulate it. And it's a positive thing. Yeah, it probably hurts. It probably doesn't feel the best, but at the same time, if they don't do that manipulation, she won't get her range of motion back. She won't be as flexible as she was before. So that's why I just think that when we look at words, we do have to just try to think outside the box, like we encourage you to do on the show, and just look at it from a different viewpoint. Because I do think when it comes to words, it is about that perspective that you have.
Can we get the definition up again, please? To change by artful or unfair means so as to serve one's purpose. So when I think of manipulation, I'm thinking that word unfair pops out to me. Unfair. Because for me, I'm trying to get something out of it. I want to get my way, So that's when I think of manipulation, I'm trying to get my way. So if I think of somebody who wants something, let's say there's something that I want, and say like my husband, he says, no, you can't have it, and then I try to use a tactic. Oh, I'm going to give him a little kiss and I'm going to be all extra sweet. And so, I might come out of character, I might come out of the normal because maybe I may not be a sweet person and that may be out of character. And he's like, well, he's going to question, well, what's going on? You're all on me. You're all over me. Well, that's a form of manipulation because you're trying to get something that you want. So for me, I just don't see it in a positive light because, you're in a way tricking somebody to get what you want.
But see, and I understand where you're coming from with that, but that's why I think when it comes to manipulation, like the definition said, you are playing off of someone's emotions to try to get what it is that you want. Whereas contrivance, which I think is positive manipulation, is you are building them up and you are finding those traits that are good in them, maybe that they don't even see. So I understand what you're saying with that example, because that is the definition of manipulation. But the definition of positive manipulation, which is contrivance, would be the opposite of that. So if you wanted something from your husband, you would not necessarily do it maybe just to get what you want in a sneaky way. Because the thing is, your personality, you could be a sweet person. You know what I mean? And I have to say, you are a sweet person. I know you personally. So, you know what I'm saying? I don't see that. But I just think we can always flip something and just look at it in a different perspective is what I think.
I totally get what you're saying. I totally get. But, we got to remember that the focus word is manipulation here. Is our focus word.
I get that.
So, it's what do you want to get out of it? What is the intent? And I think it's the intent that's behind it, and I think that sometimes we ask for things because we may have an ulterior motive. That's what, people who are manipulating somebody else, and it's harmful, it's pressure. And when somebody else feels like they're being pressured, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good to be pressured.
But I understand we're focusing on manipulation tonight, but here on Words Versus Words with Friends, we use words and phrases. So if you know me and you, sometimes we do throw out other words even in the discussion. We may not always have the definition up like I did this time, but that is something that we do because when we go into a word and what it means, sometimes it takes us into different trails and we find other words that we can use as well. So I kind of hesitated with this, Jolene, a little bit because I don't ever want to make it seem like I'm trying to be deceitful or sneaky. It's just that when it comes to manipulation, I already knew you was going to have about a million things that you could talk about because when it comes to manipulation, that's what we think of is this negative. So I did have to do some research. You know what I'm saying? I do have to do a little digging to see, okay, but I wanted to because I wanted to see how is it that we can make it something positive. And another example I have is when we have nonprofit organizations, they use manipulation. It's not a negative thing. They try to encourage and influence you in a positive way so that you can give to others and make a difference and see a positive change in the world. So either way, you can look at it as negative or positive. It can be good or it can be bad.
Hey, Mariah had a comment. Mariah says, I agree. It's all about intentions. Definitely, Mariah. All about intentions. If you have something good in mind or a positive outcome, or maybe, you're trying to do it to help somebody, maybe, and maybe the outcome is positive, then maybe the manipulation, may be good, but whenever I think of that word, right away, I do hear the negative part. So it does definitely depend on the intentions of the person. And I think the way that you treat the person while you are manipulating them really just shows your heart and the intention behind it.
That's very true. Another example. So I'm going to stop just real quick. So we have a comment from Kristen. Thank you for your comment. Is the intention of the manipulator or the effect on the person being manipulated more important? Kristen, that is a very good question. So I do think that the intent of the manipulator, to me, it makes a difference, because in the example that I use, if you have a nonprofit organization, they're not going to come to you with maybe ill intentions. They're going to try to appeal to you and say, hey, these are the people who need help. Can you please help us out so we can make a change in the world? So I do feel like it is the intent, like you said earlier, Jolene, when it comes to manipulation, by definition, it can be something that is negative. But if you really look at it, it can also be something positive. It's all about that perspective and that intention, like Kristen mentioned.
I want to comment on Kristen's what she said, her question, because is the intention of the manipulator or the effect on the person being manipulated more important? I want to say the effect on the person being manipulated, because it can be my perception as to how the manipulator is coming at me. So if it's my perception and I feel like I'm being threatened, or I feel like I'm feeling pressured, or I feel like somebody is controlling me, this is an overwhelming feeling that's coming at me. So to me, I feel that the way that a person makes me feel is so important, and what tactics or strategies is the other person, the manipulator, throwing at me, I think is going to be really important, because you can have a manipulator come at you, and they can try to sway your decision or sway your emotions, but the way that you react to it, you might say, okay, well, I recognize and I see what this person is doing, but I'm not going to stand up for it. So therefore, I'm going to put up some boundaries and let them know, hey, what you're trying to do is not going to work.
And I do hear your viewpoint on that when it comes to manipulation in a negative way. But on the flip side, for contrivance, if it's positive manipulation, then you're going to approach a person and you're going to see those traits and those qualities that are good. You know what I mean? So I think that it really does just depend on the situation, depends on the person, whether it's something negative or whether it's positive. So just the intention behind it.
We're going to take a break, and we want to hear your feedback. We want to hear what you have to say when we come back from this commercial. We want you to stay tuned as we come back to Words versus Words with Friends.
I have another scripture about contentment.
Okay.
Sorry to hit you with the scriptures tonight, but when I think about contentment, that just kind of brought up one. So I have one from Philippians 4:12, and it says, I know what it is to be in need. And you know what? I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation.
So you think contentment is better than fulfillment? Is that correct?
I do.
So you have a favorite scripture that you shared with me the other day.
Ooh,
what is this scripture?
What is
it? John 10:10. I came that they may have and enjoy life and have it in abundance to the full, till it overflows. Full. You said that is your favorite scripture, but yet you're sitting here telling me that contentment right here, you prefer that over fulfillment?
Hey y'all, thank you so much for tuning in tonight, and we really hope you're enjoying this episode. We would love for you to join us here on Facebook, YouTube, and Spreaker every Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time.
We encourage you to participate in our live chat rooms and to share your ideas and perspectives during the live show. Don't forget to go to next15podcast.com and tell us how we're doing. You can also catch up on future episodes of Words versus Words with Friends.
You can also check out past episodes of the Next 15 podcast show and Biblically Speaking with Trey North. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Now let's get back to the podcast.
Hi, welcome back to Words versus Words with Friends. I'm your host, Jolene Santiago, and I have my co-host here with us, Shamika. And so before the commercial break, we were talking about manipulation, and I encourage you guys to comment, to like, and to share. We want to hear your feedback and your viewpoint. Every week, we are putting up a poll, and we're casting out a poll on Facebook, and we encourage you to vote each week based on the word that we're working on for that week. So we encourage you to go ahead and vote. So we have a poll from last week. It said, which do you think is better? Content. We found that everybody who voted, that people felt that 40% voted on content. They felt that was better. And 60% said fulfilled was better. So like I said, each week we want to hear what you have to say in the poll. Okay, so today we're talking about manipulation. We're talking about, and we threw out the question, is it good or is it bad? And we want to hear what you have to say. Shamika said that it's good, and I said it's bad. So there's a question there. Take the poll, and we will reveal the results next week. So Shamika,
yes, I am.
So you're saying that manipulation is good, positive. There's positive manipulation. And where I said, well, I'm not buying it. I'm not seeing it. I think it's just negative, all the way around, and we had a very good question from one of our viewers, Kristen, and Kristen was saying, well, which do you think is more important, the intent of the manipulator or the effect of the person being manipulated more important? Okay. So,
I was saying I thought it was the intent, and I think you were saying it's how it affects the person. Because when it comes to manipulation or positive, it is the effect and the intention. Because manipulation, you are using someone's emotions against them, whereas with positive manipulation or contrivance, you aren't looking to gain something. You're really just trying to motivate the person or maneuver them to look at things in a different way. And I also want to mention that we also have employers that use contrivance or positive manipulation. They do it every day with their employees so that their employees can develop those skills and reach those goals. So each employer, they look for those qualities in their employee, the best qualities that are going to come out so that they can achieve those goals. So I do think that even teachers use that, even employers use it. I think we use it on a daily basis. I think there's sometimes when we do manipulate people, but it can be in a positive way, not to get something out of gain or being deceitful. Because when we even look at manipulation, a lot of times the people don't even know that they're being manipulated, if that makes sense. It's something that they don't even know is happening. Whereas with contrivance, it's recognized, they're being built up, and it's not for personal gain. It's something to encourage them and to improve them.
I totally agree. The other person is manipulating somebody to get what they want. They're trying to get something out of it. Shamika, I have a question because I often wonder this. Do you think kindness can be a form of manipulation?
That's a good question. I think that it can, because when you think of someone being kind, I mean, I automatically think of someone who is sweet, who has very good intentions. But at the same time, if you are a manipulator, if you maybe have narcissistic tendencies, possibly, you could be kind to that person to try to reel them in, to try to gaslight, things like that. So that's a really good question. I think it goes back to the intent as well, because only that person knows the reason that they're being kind to you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't really know until you kind of study them for a while and really see their intention and the type of person that they are. So yeah, it could be good or it could be bad. Either way.
So you seeing more of the bad side now?
No, I don't. I honestly don't. I don't see more of the bad side. I'm trying to get you to see the good side. You know what I mean? Because I already knew when we even decided to do this. I was like, okay, Jolene's going to have like a million different things. So I had to come with it. You know what I mean? So I had to. So another example I want to bring up is even with Steve Jobs. Breeze Bonnets, thank you so much for your comment. We do appreciate your support. Even with Steve Jobs, he had to use some type of manipulation for Apple to be so popular, for Pixar to be so popular. He used manipulation techniques in order to advance his business. You know what I mean? So it can't always be looked at as a negative thing. It goes back to the intention. And even with Steve Jobs, he would build people up. He would encourage his employees. And when you do that, you do get those positive results. You get those goals that are reached. And now Apple, I have to say, I done converted. I used to be Android all the way. But, my whole family, they have Apple now. And look, influence. I'm doing it too. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think that's a good example of having positive manipulation on a person and not, it not being in a negative light.
Well, that's really good. I didn't look at it that way. I didn't look at it that way, but that's really good. So would you say, because I also think about the word influence, do you think that maybe influence could be a form of manipulation, or do you see that as being something completely different?
So I do think influence can be a form as well, because when you are influenced by other people, you tend to change your decision. Just like with the example of the Apple iPhone. I remember it's been probably years, and my baby sister was just like, Shamika, like, why don't you go ahead and just get an Apple? Like. Go ahead and just get the iPhone. I was like, no, I'm Android all the way, so I do think influence can be negative or it can be positive. It just also goes back to that intention as well.
I see where you're coming from, but like I said, I still believe that.
I know you do.
I mean, because there could be certain instances where it may be a little touch of it, but I think just overall, how a person makes you feel, that control. And I think of that control, that person controlling you to get what they want. And that's why I the definition says that unfair. It's not fair. What you're doing to other people is that you're tricking them. And I don't think that there's anything positive in trickery or anything positive in I'm going to do this just to get exactly what I want,
Yeah. Well, I have to disagree though, Jolene, because I do. I knew you was going to come with it, but there's just so many different examples of people who use positive manipulation. I did go ahead and mention some of those as well. But even when we look at a therapist, they are using manipulation every single time you speak with them. Not in a negative way. They are looking at a situation. They're looking at what it is that you're going through from a different perspective, and they're helping you see those good qualities in you. Because a lot of times when you go to therapy, you are telling them some things that you're struggling with. Maybe you're telling them how it is that you feel. And they're going to look at the situation and look at you and bring out those positives and cause you to look at things differently. So they're using positive manipulation as well. So Bree, thank you for your comment tonight. She says influencers manipulate people into buying products they may not necessarily need so they can get a cash kickback from the company. And that is true, because we know of Instagram influencers, we know of social media influencers, but to the same extent, I want to flip that too, because at the same time, sometimes we have people that we meet online who are more supportive than people who are in our family. So even the influencers on social media and things like that, it could be that they're bringing out good qualities in you, and they could influence you to do things or purchase things to really improve your life. So if you really want to look at it, it could be a positive thing too as an influencer. I think it just goes back to the perspective, and it goes back to the intention behind it all.
No. When there's people out there that they're not honest, let's just say, they're not honest, and they try to, gain for themselves, they're very, could be selfish and greedy, and they're all about personal gain. So there are people out there who do sell products, that are not good and not healthy for you. So, and they try to manipulate, or they try to use tactics, and they try to say, oh, this is a great product. This is the best product that's out there. This is the best that you could ever find. And they really just work it up, to the point that, hey, now they're lying. And so you can see that there's certain traits with people who are manipulators, that they lie, they're not honest, and that's not right. And then, Shamika, you also brought up about the social worker, the therapist. I believe that if it's a positive outcome, I believe that, they're working on building you up. They're working on your health, your mental health to be improved. So I don't see that as a form of manipulation, because I look at the overall, and I look at what was the outcome, what came out of it. And if it's something that's positive or beneficial, to that recipient, then I don't think that they are being manipulated.
But I still disagree with that, because it's a form of manipulation. It's just positive. It's just bringing out those things that the person really can't see. It is helping them to improve their life. So I just disagree. I think we really just have to look at perspective and intent. And we also have to just realize that when we say manipulation, it does not have to necessarily be a bad thing. It can be positive. It can be contrivance, which is positive manipulation. So I still have to disagree on that with you, Jolene.
Yeah. I just go back to the definition.
Unfair
treatment, to get something that you want, personal gain, so I always go back to that definition.
I got you.
There's a lot of definitions out there that just
There are. There's a lot of different ones.
I haven't found one that has a positive
You haven't found one?
No, when I look up the word manipulation, I don't see anything positive attached to that.
Well, when I look at positive manipulation, I find contrivance, which is the definition. So that's what I saw when I looked it up.
A synonym does not mean exactly the same.
That's okay.
Similarity, but
I understand. You're right. So we thank you so much for joining us tonight here on Words versus Words with Friends. And Jolene, do you have any final comments?
I just think when it comes to manipulation, I think that you have to be able to recognize, first of all, you're being manipulated and that somebody is manipulating you. It doesn't always feel good. Shamika will argue that it is positive, but you guys take the vote. Do you think that manipulation is good or bad? Based on what you heard this evening, what is your perspective on it? Is manipulation good or bad? Cast your vote. Go to Facebook. Go to our Facebook page at WVWWF. But like I said, Shamika, I still kind of see it in a negative light, but I do understand where you're coming from. I do. I can see that as far as the outcome and getting the results that you want could be manipulation. But it's all in your perspective. How do you guys view it? What do you think and what do you see? What is your perception? And
final comments for me. Sorry, Jolene. I just want to thank everybody for joining. And also, I think that even with the show, the purpose of our show is we want to look at different perspectives. So Jolene may think that manipulation is negative. I may see it as positive, but we can still agree, like I said in another episode, to disagree. And we can have respect. You can go back and watch that episode too, to have respect for each other and hear each other's perspectives.
And you can see us on Facebook. You can follow us on Facebook at WVWWF. Like, follow, and share. We also wanted to say that we won't be on next week. We'll be on the following week. Okay, so and we're usually on at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And you know what, Shamika? When we come back on, it's going to be March.
It is. I can't believe it. It just flying by already.
So we encourage you guys to go ahead and share this, and we will see you next time on Words versus Words with Friends. You've been watching Words vs. Words with Friends podcast, brought to you by Next 15 Podcast Productions. If you would like to support the podcast, go to next15podcast.com and click the Buy Me Coffee tab, where we will receive your donations of any size. Thank you in advance and for watching the podcast. We will see you next week.